A love that doesn't wait its turn. Chapter 1. The first voltage. Elena stepped from the car, and Daniel felt the shock of her hit him like a live wire. Thomas felt his own jolt harder, deeper, carrying a warning he couldn't ignore. She came toward them with a grace that only heightened the tension, each step pulling the air tighter. Her expression was unreadable, but her presence was not. Love arrived with her in a rush, sharp and uninvited, demanding to be reckoned with. The breeze carried the scent of new leaves. The campus clock struck 10. Its chime too calm for the moment, pressing in on the three of them. Elena paused near the edge of the walkway, waiting as if curious which man would move first. Daniel did. "Elena," he said, and his voice betrayed him with its softness. She tilted her head. Daniel. Still quick off the mark. Thomas came a beat later. He didn't rush. Didn't smile. "Elena," he said simply. Her eyes lingered on him a moment longer than was fair. "Thomas." The silence that followed was sharper than words. It flickered around them, bright and dangerous. Daniel cleared his throat. "You came sooner than we thought." "I know," she said. "I didn't warn anyone." A small shrug. It felt better that way. Daniel felt the faint sting of that. Thomas registered something sharper. "You look different," Daniel said. Elena gave a small, humorless laugh. "Most people do after 7 years." Thomas corrected him automatically. 6.5. Elena's smile tightened, as if that detail carried more weight than either man understood. There were shadows under her eyes, gentle but unmistakable. Not exhaustion. Not age. Something else. Something she wasn't saying. They walked toward the faculty cafe, though the idea came without discussion, as if all three had been pulled by the same invisible current. Elena walked between them. The space felt too small for what lived there. Inside, the cafe felt dim, the air heavy with roasted coffee and the faint chatter of students who didn't realize they were sitting inside the opening scene of A Quiet Storm. They took a booth in the corner. Elena in the middle. Daniel left, Thomas right. None of them commented on the arrangement, but all felt its geometry. A server brought menus they didn't need. Coffee arrived. They didn't drink. Elena looked down at her cup before meeting their eyes. "I didn't come back to cause trouble." "Then you miscalculated," Daniel said, trying to make it sound like a joke. Thomas didn't even try. "You knew what this would do." Her jaw tightened, then eased. "I did. But coming back was necessary." "For what?" Thomas asked. Elena didn't answer, not right away. "I needed to see where I went wrong," she said finally. Daniel frowned. "You didn't go wrong." Elena gave him a long, unreadable look. "Didn't I?" She turned to Thomas. He held her gaze until she looked down, as if her own reflection in his eyes was too clear for comfort. Daniel hated that. He hated how fast it returned, the competition that had once cost all three of them more than they'd admitted. But Elena felt it too. "Stop," she said quietly. "Not today." Thomas leaned back. "We're not doing anything." "Not yet," she said. The air snapped a little at the edges. Not loudly, but enough. After a long silence, Daniel asked, "Where are you staying?" "A faculty house on Elm Street," she said. "The one with the red porch." "I know the place," Thomas said. "It's quiet. That's why I chose it." Daniel tried to read her tone. Quiet could mean healing. Or hiding. "You came alone?" he asked. A brief pause. Then, "Yes." Thomas studied her face. "Elena." "What?" she asked, but she didn't hold his eyes this time. "Are you all right?" he asked. She closed her hands around her cup, warming them. "I'm adjusting," she said. "That's all." Daniel leaned forward. "Adjusting to what?" She gave a small laugh that wasn't joy. "To the truth. To consequences. To myself." Thomas's voice came low, steady. "That sounds like a storm." Elena looked up at him, and for the first time a crack showed. "It was," she said. "It still is." Daniel felt a chill coil through him. Something was wrong. Or broken. Or newly dangerous. But she wasn't ready to say. When they finished the kind of coffees no one drank, they stepped into the sunlight again. It had grown brighter, too bright for the tension walking beside them. Daniel gestured toward the old seminar building. "Do you want to see it?" The room we nearly lived in. Thomas shot him a look careful. Elena nodded. Yes, I think I do. They walked across the courtyard, the three of them a slow-moving voltage line. Students glanced their way, sensing something but not understanding it. Daniel opened the seminar room door. Dust motes drifted like tiny silent witnesses. Elena stepped inside and stopped. This room, she whispered. God, this room. Thomas watched her with a face that didn't move but a posture that betrayed him. Daniel walked to the chalkboard and ran his hand across its faint smudges. It feels smaller. Or we got bigger, Elena said. She moved to the window and touched the glass, her fingers leaving a brief print. You loved this place, Daniel said. Elena turned. I loved everything then. Did it love you back? Thomas asked quietly. She inhaled sharply. Sometimes. Daniel felt the energy climb in the room. An invisible pressure against the walls. Elena, he said. Why are you really here? Her eyes met his. They didn't soften. I needed to confront the life I didn't choose, she said. Thomas's jaw tightened. Which one of us was that? She looked between them. Both. The word hit hard. Daniel felt it. Thomas felt it harder. Elena closed her eyes for a moment. When I left, I thought I could outrun the part of me that loved you both. I thought time would sand it down. Make it neat. She opened her eyes. It didn't. The room held its breath. They left the building in silence. Outside, the wind had picked up, rustling the trees with a restless energy. Elena hugged her arms lightly around herself. I have to go. They're dropping off the last boxes soon. Daniel stepped forward. Let us help. No, she said gently. Not yet. Thomas frowned. Why not? Because the moment either of you crosses that porch, everything changes, she said. And I need one night to breathe. Daniel swallowed. You'll call. I'll try. She looked at both men. I mean that. Then she walked away. No hesitation, no backward glance, just a steady, decisive stride that made everything in Daniel tighten and everything in Thomas clench. She turned the corner and vanished. The silence she left behind had an edge to it. Daniel let out a breath. She's not telling us everything. No, Thomas said. She isn't. Daniel looked at him. You felt that, right? The way she... I felt everything, Thomas said sharply. Then softer. Same as you. They stood in the courtyard, two men with a shared fault line running between them, knowing it would crack again. Thomas, Daniel said. What are we supposed to do? Thomas's jaw flexed. Brace, he said. The storm's already here. Daniel didn't argue, because for once Thomas was right. Chapter 2. Fault lines. Daniel sat in his office long after the hall had emptied for the afternoon. The window was open, letting in the soft rush of campus wind, but it didn't clear the heaviness in the room or the one sitting in him. He couldn't get Elena's face out of his mind. Not the smile, thin, deliberate, almost protective. Not the silence she'd wrapped around herself. Not the way she'd walked away with that mix of strength and fragility that had always undone him. He leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. The tension sat behind his ribs like a knot that kept pulling tighter. A knock at the door broke the stillness. Come in, he said. Thomas stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, not out of rudeness but out of habit. He shut the door gently behind him. You look like hell, Thomas said. Daniel opened one eye. You always bring comfort. Thomas sat in the old leather chair across from him. He rested his elbows on his knees and clasped his hands. He looked exhausted, though he'd never admit it. You've been sitting here since she left, Thomas said. Daniel raised a brow. Have you been watching my office? No, Thomas said. But I know you. And I know what she does to you. Daniel let out a dry laugh. You talk like you're immune. Thomas looked at the floor. I never was. A pause. Heavy, unhelpful, familiar. Daniel rubbed his temples. Something's wrong with her. I know, Thomas said. And she won't tell us. I know that too. Daniel sat upright. So what do we do? Thomas exhaled slowly. You asked me that before. And you said to brace. I'm updating my advice, Thomas said. Daniel waited. Don't chase her, Thomas said. Daniel frowned. What does that mean? Thomas leaned back. She needs time. She's had 6 years. Time away isn't the same as time with, Thomas said. She's standing on something fragile. If either of us pushes too fast, she'll run again. And this time she won't come back. Daniel stared at him across the desk. You say that like you know. I do, Thomas said quietly. I know exactly how she looks when she's about to disappear. Daniel swallowed. That hit too close. Thomas stood restless. He walked to the bookshelf, ran a hand along the spines, then turned back. You're thinking about going to her tonight, Thomas said. Daniel didn't deny it. Don't, Thomas said. Not yet. Daniel tried to read his face. Thomas looked calm, but there was tension beneath his voice, sharp, controlled, nearly brittle. You sound like you're warning me, Daniel said. I am, Thomas replied. But not only for your sake. Daniel's jaw tightened. You think she came back for you? Thomas didn't flinch. I think she didn't come back for either of us. That landed harder than Daniel wanted it to. Thomas walked to the door, rested his hand on the frame, and glanced over his shoulder. She needs space, he said. Give it to her. And what about you? Daniel asked. Thomas paused. I'm giving her space too. Daniel narrowed his eyes. You? Really? Thomas turned fully, the faintest smirk tightening one side of his mouth. I'm capable of restraint. Daniel snorted. Since when? Thomas didn't answer. He left the office without another word. Daniel stared at the empty doorway a long time after he was gone. Restraint. He wasn't sure either of them would manage it. 2. The house on Elm Street. Elena's faculty house sat at the end of the block. White siding, red porch, 2 windows with old curtains that weren't quite level. It had a lonely charm. The kind that made you want to sit on the steps and watch the neighborhood breathe. Elena stood in the living room surrounded by open boxes. The late afternoon light poured through the windows, falling across her arms and the half-unpacked shelves. She set a stack of books on the floor and sat beside them. She pressed her palms into her eyes, then let them fall to her lap. Felt strange being back. Strange and dangerous and heavier than she had expected. Her phone buzzed on the table. A message from an unknown number. Did you arrive safely? T. Elena stared at it a moment, then typed. Yes. House is fine. Settling in. E. She hesitated, then added. Thank you. A long pause. Then. Good. Try to rest. Don't worry about Daniel. I'll handle him. T. A soft, involuntary laugh left her. She typed. No one handles Daniel. Thomas replied. I can try. Elena set the phone down before she could type something she'd regret. The house creaked as it settled into the evening. It was an old sound, comforting in its own way. Still, she felt a tightness in her chest. Old fears rubbing against new questions. She looked around the room, thinking of the walk across campus. The way both men had watched her with conflicting emotions they didn't bother hiding. She had felt every one of them like electricity in the air. She closed her eyes. This time she wasn't running. She promised herself that. But promises made in silence had broken before. 3. Evening tension. Daniel didn't go home after leaving his office. He walked the length of campus twice, hands in his pockets, the breeze unsettling his shirt collar. He kept ending up near Elm Street, then forced himself away again. He finally stopped on the bridge over the creek. Water rushed below, calm and relentless. Don't chase her, Thomas had said. Daniel gripped the railing. He hated how much sense that made. He stood there a long time before he heard footsteps behind him. I knew I'd find you here, said a voice. Daniel turned. His chair of the department, Dr. Reyes, approached, hands in the pockets of his jacket. You look troubled, Reyes said. More than usual. Daniel forced a smile. Just thinking. That's never a good sign, Reyes replied. Not for you. Daniel huffed a laugh. You know me too well. Reyes stepped beside him, looking out over the creek. You heard she's back, I assume. Daniel's stomach dropped. He shouldn't have been surprised, news traveled fast. I did, he said. Reyes studied him. Are you all right with that? Why wouldn't I be? Daniel tried. Reyes raised a brow. Come now. You three carved your initials into half the emotional walls of this department. Daniel looked away. That was a long time ago. Not long enough, Reyes murmured. And certainly not forgotten. Daniel exhaled. I don't know what she wants. Do you need to? Reyes asked. Or will you just react like you always do? Daniel stiffened. I don't just react. Reyes gave him a compassionate, piercing look. Daniel, my friend, you are a man of instinct and heat. Always have been. It's your brilliance and your flaw. Daniel swallowed. So what do you suggest? Reyes touched the railing gently. Move slowly. The past is a fragile animal. If you approach too fast, it bites. Daniel tried to keep his voice steady. And if you move too slow? Reyes smiled sadly. It runs. For night studies, Thomas spent his evening differently. He went home, tossed his jacket onto a chair, and sat at his desk. He opened the file for the book he'd been trudging through for years, the one he claimed he had no interest in finishing. He stared at the blank page. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. Nothing came. His mind kept drifting back to the seminar room, to Elena's eyes, to Daniel's reactions, to the sharp silence that seemed to echo inside him. He pushed back from the desk and stood restless. He paced the room twice, then opened a window. Cool night air drifted in. The street outside was quiet, a few distant headlights passing through. He took a breath, then another. He felt her presence still, like static on the edge of a radio signal. Thomas was not a man who scared easily, but tonight something in him felt fragile. He hated that. He sat back at the desk, opened the file again. This time he typed. The storm didn't begin with thunder. It began with the return of something I thought I had buried. He stared at the sentence. It wasn't good. It was too honest. But it was something. 5. The knock. It was close to 8 when Elena finally stopped unpacking. She stretched her arms above her head and winced. The muscles in her shoulders were tight. She walked into the kitchen, filled a glass of water, and leaned against the counter. She had planned to call her sister tonight, or her mother, or anyone who wasn't a memory in human form. But her phone stayed silent on the table. A faint knock sounded at the front door. Elena froze. Another knock, gentle, quick. She set the glass down and walked slowly to the door. Her pulse quickened. She didn't know why. Maybe she did. She opened the door a few inches. Daniel stood on the porch. Elena's stomach twisted. Of course it was him. Daniel raised a hand in a small apologetic wave. I know you said not today. Elena's voice came out softer than she wanted. Daniel. He stepped back slightly, hands up. I'm not coming in. Promise. He stopped, searching for the right word. He failed. I needed to see you were okay. She exhaled, long and tired. I'm fine. Daniel studied her face. No, he said quietly. You're not. Her hand tightened on the edge of the door. Daniel. I won't stay, he said. Just tell me you're not alone in this. Her throat tightened. I'm not. Daniel took a slow breath. Good. They stood in silence, nothing but the faint chirp of crickets and the whisper of wind moving through the trees. Elena opened the door a little wider. Do you want to sit on the porch? For a minute. Daniel hesitated. He remembered Thomas's warning. But the sight of her, tired, conflicted, standing in the doorway of a house too empty for her, pulled at him. 1 minute, he said. They stepped onto the porch. Elena sat on the top step. Daniel stayed standing at first, then joined her. They didn't touch, but the space between them felt small and trembling. Elena stared out at the street. I'm sorry if this is messy. Daniel gave a soft laugh. It was always messy. I didn't want to break anything by coming back. You didn't break anything, Daniel said. She glanced at him. No? Then why does everything feel cracked? Daniel looked away. Because you matter. That's not something that goes away. She swallowed hard. I thought it would. It didn't. A long quiet moment passed. Daniel turned to her. Elena, what happened? Why are you back? She closed her eyes. Something ended, she said. Something I gave too much of myself to. Daniel's chest tightened. A relationship? Yes. Daniel tried to keep his voice even. Did he hurt you? Elena opened her eyes. The look in them was tired and clear. He didn't have to, she said. I did that myself. Daniel felt anger rise. Toward the man he didn't know. Toward whatever had wounded her so deeply. Elena, he said gently. You don't have to tell me anything you're not ready to. But whatever happened, you're not alone. Elena looked at him, really looked at him. And something in her expression softened, but it was also edged with fear. Daniel, she whispered. I can't do this again. Daniel felt the words like a knife. But he kept his voice steady. I'm not asking you to. She shook her head. You being here this close, it feels like the beginning of something. And I'm not ready for beginnings. Daniel nodded slowly. I won't push, he said. Not this time. Elena looked relieved. And sad. A dangerous combination. Thank you, she said. Daniel stood. I should go. Elena nodded. Will you call tomorrow? If you want me to. She hesitated. Then, I do. Daniel's heart stuttered. He nodded once, then stepped down the porch steps. Elena, he said, turning back. Yes. I'm glad you came back. Her voice was barely audible. Me too. Daniel walked away. Elena watched until he turned the corner, then closed the door quietly behind her. She leaned against it, letting out a long, shaky breath. She didn't feel relief. She felt the faint, unmistakable hum of something waking up. Something she wasn't ready for. Something that scared her more than leaving had. She slid down to the floor, pressing her hands to her face. Not again, she whispered. But her heart didn't believe her. Chapter 3. Currents. Elena woke to the sound of wind sliding through the elm trees outside. The house was quiet, too quiet for her liking. The night was thick with possibility, but also with hesitation. She had unpacked only enough to remind herself that she had returned, not enough to make it permanent. That was deliberate. Her phone lay on the counter. She didn't check it. Not yet. The messages from Thomas and Daniel had stopped for hours, leaving only a dull pulse in her chest. She was aware of it, the way her body kept remembering the tension she had tried to suppress for years, the tension between the two men she had once loved with everything she had, and still carried with her. She dressed slowly. Simple clothes, soft colors. Something neutral. The kind of armor that made her feel safe. But safety was a thin veneer, and she knew it. The moment she stepped outside, even the quietest streets could carry shock. Daniel didn't sleep. He hadn't been able to. He went over the porch conversation repeatedly, a mental playback that had him pacing the small apartment he'd lived in for nearly 20 years. His hands dug into his hair. Her words, her look, the subtle edge of her fear haunted him. He wanted to call. He wanted to knock on her door and tell her everything she didn't know she wanted to hear. But Thomas's warning lingered like smoke. She needs space. Don't push. And still, he found himself on Elm Street before dawn. Shadows stretched across the sidewalks, long and black in the weak streetlights. The house was dark, but a faint glow from a window suggested she was awake, moving, alive, unguarded. He stayed at the edge of the porch, breath shallow. The heartbeat of possibility thrummed in his ears. Then, without thinking, he raised a hand and knocked. One soft, deliberate rap. Silence. Another knock. The door opened a crack. Elena's face appeared, half-lit, guarded. Daniel, she said softly. He felt the words as a spark, and for a second the world contracted to the two of them. I couldn't sleep, he said, voice low. Daniel, she interrupted, holding up a hand. Her eyes searched his, calm but sharp. You can't come in. Not like this. I'm not here to upset you. You're standing on my porch at 5:30 in the morning. That counts as upsetting. He let a slow smile break free. Maybe. But I couldn't stop thinking. She exhaled, leaning slightly against the doorframe. Then you shouldn't have thought. His gaze flicked past her. In the shadows, a faint figure approached. Thomas. Thomas stopped on the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable. He watched them. Carefully. Patiently. Elena's jaw tightened. You didn't tell him to stay away, she whispered, more to herself than to Daniel. Thomas didn't answer. He just waited. Daniel's pulse kicked. "You came out to see me?" he asked. Thomas's eyes met his. "She didn't need me to tell her anything," he said flatly. Elena stepped aside, a gesture of welcome. Not warm, not full, but enough. Daniel walked in slowly, careful, deliberate. The door clicked shut behind him. Thomas didn't move. The three of them stood in the living room. Dawn light barely reached past the curtains, painting everything in muted gold and shadow. "Coffee?" Elena asked. "Yes," Daniel said immediately. Thomas shook his head. "No, not yet." Elena glanced at him. "Of course not." They sat in the kitchen. Daniel across from Elena, Thomas at the corner of the table, close enough to watch but not too close. The air hummed. Tension had a texture, electric, visible if one looked carefully. Elena stirred her coffee slowly, avoiding both men's eyes. "We need to talk," she said finally. Daniel leaned forward. "About what?" "About us," she said. The words fell quietly but like stones into deep water. Thomas shifted in his chair. "You mean this triangle?" Elena gave a faint, bitter smile. "Triangle? You sound like a geometry problem." "Maybe that's exactly what this is," Thomas said. Daniel's eyes flicked to him. "No, it's not geometry. It's history, desire, mistakes, regret." Elena's fingers tightened around her mug. "And it's still dangerous," she said. "Not if we handle it carefully," Daniel said. Thomas laughed softly. "Carefully? You? You've never handled anything carefully." Daniel's jaw tightened. "I handle what matters." Elena leaned back, eyes narrowing. "And what matters isn't just one of you, is it?" Both men froze. "Yes," she said. "It matters that you both exist in my life. That you're still here. That I'm still here." The words were soft, almost a whisper, but they carried the weight of every untold story, every reckless choice, every lingering touch. Daniel's heart kicked. Thomas's chest tightened. The table seemed to shrink under the pressure of unspoken truths. "I didn't expect to feel this again," she said. "Not so fast, not so sharply. Not after leaving everything behind." "You didn't leave us," Thomas said quietly. "I left," she said, eyes flashing. "But I never stopped feeling the pull between us." Daniel felt it too. He couldn't hide it anymore. Not from her. Not from Thomas. Elena looked at him and something broke in her voice. "You both make it impossible to be rational. Impossible to plan." Thomas spoke first. "We know," Daniel added. "We're aware of the chaos. We've always been aware." A pause. The hum of morning rose through the house. Elena's eyes glistened. "Then why am I still here?" Daniel leaned closer. "Because you want to understand. Because you want to feel safe. And because you want us." Her gaze moved between them, sharp and unflinching. "I do. But I'm terrified." Thomas's voice was quiet, measured. "Fear is proof you're alive. And alive is worth it." Daniel reached for her hand. Elena didn't pull away. She let him hold it, even as the tremor of restraint ran through her fingers. Thomas didn't move toward them, didn't intervene, didn't speak. He only watched, the fire in his gaze unblinking, unreadable. Elena's voice shook. You both have a claim I don't know how to honor. I don't know if I can." Daniel's thumb brushed her knuckles. "You don't need to decide yet." Thomas's eyes never left hers. "You need to feel it. Not choose it yet. Feel it." And she did. She felt it, the electricity thrumming between all three of them, sharp, dangerous, impossible to ignore. She closed her eyes. "It's overwhelming," she whispered. "Then lean into it," Thomas said. Daniel added, "Lean into us." For a moment she let herself feel the pull, the memory, the longing, the reckless surge of desire and regret and hope. The morning sun climbed higher. Shadows shifted across the kitchen floor. Outside, the wind picked up again. It rattled the loose shutters, whispered through the trees. Inside, a storm had begun. Not with thunder. Not yet. Not in full. But with a current, electric, raw, unrelenting, between three people who had once burned together and now had the chance to do it all again. Elena opened her eyes. Her hands tightened around Daniel's, but she looked at Thomas. "I'm afraid," she said. Daniel squeezed her hand. "Good," he said. Fear is proof you're alive. And this is real. Thomas leaned forward. And storms change everything. Sometimes they break you. Sometimes they make you. She nodded, swallowing. Then I guess we ride it. Daniel smiled, a little feral. Thomas gave the faintest, sharpest grin. The storm had arrived. And there was no turning back. Chapter 4. Collision Course. Elena woke to sunlight burning through the curtains. The house was quiet, except for the faint hum of morning traffic and the wind teasing the trees outside. Her body ached, not from sleep but from the tension of yesterday, from holding hands too long and feeling too much. She dressed quickly, a soft cotton blouse and dark pants. Something simple, neutral, armor again. But her heart knew no neutrality. She paused at the kitchen counter, staring at the coffee pot. 2 cups. She hadn't yet decided which one she wanted to drink. The warmth of calm or the heat of chaos. She took both anyway. The knock came before she could pour the first cup. Quick, deliberate. Not hesitant. She opened the door. Daniel. Good morning, he said, voice low, carrying both apology and intent. Elena hesitated. I told you. You can't stop me, he said, almost smiling. Not if I want to be here. Her stomach tightened. She stepped aside. Then come in. 1 cup of coffee. 1 conversation. No more. He entered silently, closing the door behind him. The air between them charged immediately. I wasn't sure you'd let me, Daniel said. I wasn't sure I'd let anyone, she replied. He walked to the table. The sun hit his face just right, highlighting the hard line of his jaw and the darkening streaks of hair at his temples. He looked familiar and foreign all at once. You look tired, Elena said. Not as tired as you, he said. She handed him a cup. Their fingers brushed, and it felt like static electricity, brief but sharp. They sat in silence for a moment, letting the early morning settle, letting the coffee steam curl between them like a promise. Then the door opened again. Thomas. Elena stiffened. Daniel tensed. Thomas didn't speak. He didn't need to. His presence was enough, sharp, magnetic, unavoidable. Elena set her cup down. Thomas, she said, voice careful. He nodded, calm but with that undercurrent of tension Daniel knew too well. Morning. Coffee? Elena asked. No, Thomas said. I'll watch for now. They all knew what that meant. Daniel leaned forward. Why are you here? Elena looked at him, then at Thomas, then back at Daniel. Her eyes flickered like sunlight on moving water. I don't know yet, she admitted. Thomas's jaw tightened. You've been running from the question long enough. I didn't come back to answer it immediately, she said. I came back to understand myself, to see what was left of everything. Daniel's chest ached. And us. Elena exhaled slowly. And us. That's part of the mess I can't ignore. The word mess was too small for what hung in the room. The air between them hummed, taut and alive. Thomas shifted slightly. You always did have a way of pulling us into the storm without a warning. I never warned you, Elena said. Because I didn't know. Daniel felt the familiar surge, the one that had haunted him for years, electric, relentless, demanding. He wanted to reach out, to hold her, to press everything back into clarity. But he stopped. Not yet. Thomas leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, eyes unreadable. And now? I'm here, she said simply. That's a start. The morning passed in fragmented conversation, careful gestures, and quiet moments thick with unspoken history. Elena talked about the house, about settling in, about things she hadn't wanted to share. Thomas listened silently, occasionally asking a pointed question. Daniel chimed in where it felt necessary, but his focus was mostly on her eyes, her hands, the subtle curve of her lips when she almost smiled. Lunch came and went. Neither man left. Neither wanted to. Neither could. By early afternoon, the tension had not eased. It had become almost physical, pressing against them, whispering in their veins, daring them to cross the invisible line. Elena finally stood. I need air, she said. I'll come with you, Daniel said immediately. Thomas's voice cut in, calm but firm. I will too. She looked at both of them. This is a trap, she said lightly. But her eyes betrayed her. She wanted both. She wanted none. She wanted clarity and chaos at the same time. Daniel and Thomas said nothing. They only followed as she stepped outside. The campus paths were quiet in the afternoon light. The air carried the faint scent of cut grass and warm concrete. Elena walked between them. Her pace was measured, controlled, but her fingers brushed against Daniel's sleeve. A fleeting electric touch. Thomas watched it. He didn't move, but he noted it. He noted everything. Daniel's jaw tightened. "You're testing me," he said quietly. "I'm testing all of you," Elena replied. They passed the old seminar hall, the place where it had all begun. The memories hit like a physical weight. Laughter, arguments, kisses stolen between stacks of books, and nights filled with reckless, tender reckoning. She stopped. Daniel stopped. Thomas stopped. Elena turned toward them. "Do you remember this?" she asked softly. Daniel's voice was tight.